Today we're installing flex fuel on the Z06, then we're going to tune it, so stick around. What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to the garage, and today we are doing a flex fuel install on the Z06, and then we're going to jump in and I'm going to go over the things that you need to turn on in the tune in order to get it to work. Listen, there's 1,001 videos out there about people installing flex fuel on the Z06 or the C7, the C6, all that stuff. Listen, you can go out, you can watch all those. None of them are going to go over the side of tuning. So I'm going to gloss over the install and just hit the high points there, and then we're just going to jump over into the tune section because that's probably why you came to my channel to watch my flex fuel video as opposed to everybody else's. But for anybody that's wondering, we're running the DSX tuning, Dave Steck's setup. I'll try and remember to put a link down below. It's a little bit more expensive than most of the people out there, but it's worth it. The guy does amazing work. The integration's great. It's super easy. And the nice thing about this one is literally the harness plugs right into the coil to grab power and ground, and then you run one wire over to the ECU. The biggest thing about this whole project is just getting to the connectors on the ECU in that passenger side fender well. And yeah, you know, it's just painful, slow process. But let's take a look under the hood real quick and look at the sensor setup, and then we'll talk about the connectors after that. Okay, this is such a well-executed kit where it actually has the nice connections, the pipe that comes out. This could probably be bent around a little bit cleaner, but for now, it looks really nice. Not bad. It's kind of touching the brake booster, and honestly, could probably use some kind of support bracket out here off of this canister, but for now, nothing wrong with that. It's not going anywhere, and it really cleanly hooks into the factory fuel line. So this portion of it takes all of 30 seconds to do. Comes with the disconnect on there, a little cheap plastic one, but it works to disconnect the factory line. Clip, clip, then you unhook this coil, plug the jumper in between, and then run your ECU cable across and underneath there. My only complaints about it is he used a white wire for the signal wire. I wish it was black. I'm going to have to go back and put some sleeve on it or something like that, because even though it's tucked behind the engine very well, it's white. There's a chance that it could stick out a little bit, and this engine bay is too clean to have a loose wire sticking out. But let's go over to the passenger side and look at the fender well, and I'll tell you what all I had to do over there. Okay, so this is the meat and potatoes of it. Literally, it's just a bunch of different fasteners to get the fender well pulled back. You're going to have on the Z06 a 10 millimeter all the way to the back that you want to undo, and then a 7 millimeter up top in the door. That way you can pull the fender out enough to get the connectors off the ECU, which sit right behind your Z06 plaque on here, basically behind the air vent. Now, if you have the fiber or the carbon fiber side splitters, you're going to want to go ahead and take those things off, and he has on DSX's website the part number for the factory black rivets that go back in place. I think he says to order about 5, but I'll be honest with you, it is 1, 2, 3, 4. It's closer to like 11 or so. So they're a little bit pricey. You can get away with just using regular rivets. They're silver. The factory ones are black. Totally up to you. But the big thing about it is once you have the flex to be able to pull this thing out, you can get the 3 connectors off. It's going to be the top connector on there, the blue one. You need to pop the bottom side off, which is the pin lock. Take a wire or something, run through the socket for that to make sure that there's no plugs in there, and then run that pin in. A small pair of needle nose are going to make that a lot easier. So I'm going to bolt all this stuff back together, set it back down on the ground, and then we're going to jump over to the tuning side of it, so stick around. Okay, we've got the tune pulled up here for the Z06, the last one where we did the MPP stuff. If I'll remember, I'll throw a link up in that where we adjusted where the exhaust valves open and close. But listen, this is not that complicated. This is a pretty simple, straightforward process, so don't get freaked out by all the green that you're going to be seeing on here. What we have done is we've gone back to a known flex fuel vehicle. In this case, a 2014 Silverado is a pretty good bet. Almost all the 2014 Silverados were flex fuel, so grab one of those for a 6.2 or even a 5.8 or a 5.3. It doesn't really matter, but where we want to start is underneath fuel, underneath general flex fuel. We're going to enable it, and we're going to switch it over to sensor. Normally it's disabled, and it's virtual. So that's the big first step that we got to do. Next, we can go underneath and look at general, and we want to look at our Stoic AFR. You can see here that this thing is set up 14.1 all the way across, whereas this is a true flex fuel adjustment where we're 14.7 to 18.9 or 8.97. So I tell you what I'm going to do is I'm going to leave it as rich as it is for now, even though I don't think that we need to be 14.1 on this setup. We would be fine cruising around at 14.6, 14.7, but we can go ahead and put 8.97 there at the end, and then we're just going to interpolate between those two to get ourselves a linear flex fuel curve from 0 to 100% alcohol composition. Now, all the rest of this stuff should not need to mess with any of it, but what we do need to check out is spark, because that's going to be where the big stuff changes on there. And in particular, we have some flex fuel tables underneath spark. Everything else we're going to kind of leave alone here, but we want to look at our flex fuel, and this is our spark adder versus air mass here. And as you can see on the Z06, it's completely blank. Sometimes this table will be pre-populated, sometimes it won't. But we can go over, look at our Silverado. We're going to go ahead and copy this one over, but we're going to make some tweaks to it because we don't necessarily want to run as much timing on a boosted setup as we would a naturally aspirated one. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come down into about this range here, and I'm going to take 4 degrees out, and I'm looking for any areas that go negative, and we're going to smooth across or interpolate across those. In fact, I'm just going to interpolate this whole zone right through, about right there. We're going to do it vertically. Boom. We should be good to go there. We'll look at it on the graph, make sure that we don't have any kind of wonky stuff going on. No, I mean, besides where the 8 spikes up there, should not be an issue. Now let's check our multiplier tables. We've already got values in there. We can bump them up against the other ones. They're close enough. We're not going to mess with anything there. Same thing with, oops, wrong table there. Let's go over to gas. Gas, we already have data populated there. And then on alcohol, we already have data populated there. So we're not going to worry about those. We're good to go. And really, that's about it. We can go up into our editor and go down to our navigator. And a quick way of checking out is if we type in flex fuel sensor, flex fuel fail frequency, we might want to check that one. 90, that's already populated. Then we've got our spark and our spark multiplier. And then our sensor diagnostics, we can go ahead and enable that. And we'll double check under engine diagnostics. And there's probably some DTCs involved that are not going to be turned on. Not going to be a big ordeal, but if you want to scroll through here and look for all of your flex fuel ones, pay attention. A lot of these are going to be because we are looking at a naturally aspirated versus a supercharged vehicle here. But we can quickly look for any of the green ones popping up, and there we go. Flexible fuel sensor low. We can go ahead and do the circuit low, circuit high, and we can do second error for those. And let's see if we got any other ones in here. Fuel pump, air charge, knock sensor. That's pretty much it from the looks of it. So let's go ahead and save this one, and we're going to load it in there. And then what we're going to do is we're going to hook up to it with the scanner. And let's go ahead and change this one over to flex fuel. We're going to hook up with it to the scanner, and we're going to go ahead and load up our alcohol composition PID, because that should give us an indication whether or not the circuit is working. You know, nowadays, let me change our vehicle profile over to our Z06. And let's add a channel. You know, there's probably 5 to 10% alcohol in here, so we can add alcohol percent. And let's load it in, and let's take a look at it. Okay, now that we've got the tune written, let's go ahead and power cycle it and fire it up. Don't be surprised to get a couple DTCs. We were messing with the ECU and such. So power off. Come on, baby. There we go. And we do have a check engine light, as I said, not surprised there. So let's hook our scanner up here. We'll see what all we've got going on. Okay, you can see that we've got an alcohol of 10.6%, so we've got a good reading right off the bat. Let's check our DTC, see what all we got in there. And literally just lost communication. Pretty standard. The B101D is another communication one, so we can go ahead and clear these DTCs and they'll go away. And that's because we had the ECM unhooked during the pinout phase. But yeah, now we're up to 11%, so our flex fuel sensor is working properly. How easy is that? Just a couple hours, getting a sensor thrown in there, getting your tune set up, and you are now ready to go out and throw E85 at this thing. And it's going to be fairly decent. Now, that doesn't mean that there's not going to be more power to be had by tuning, specifically once you get a tank of E85 in there and, you know, throwing it on a dyno, making timing adjustments to see where you can max out your peak timing, you know, based off of that additional adder table that we checked whenever we updated. You've got your base spark timing, then you have your fuel adder table for whenever you're on alcohol, and it moves up towards that. That's, you know, what we would consider at 100% ethanol. We're going to be adding that much in. So if you're at 50, you're only going to be halfway into that table. If it says 4, you're only going to have about 2, but there's parameters that you can log to see your timing adders based off of things like alcohol composition and things like that in the scanner. So keep that in mind. But for a good baseline, this is probably going to pick you up 15 to 20 horsepower just by switching over. This is one of the cheapest and easiest mods to do, and one of the first mods that I suggest you do on a 5th generation if you don't already have a flex fuel, or even a 4th, and maybe if you've got a 3rd generation that supports a flex fuel sensor. For a couple $100, it's really hard to bolt on 20 horsepower, but this is one easy way to do it. So if you have any questions, hit up the comments down below. As always, if you haven't subscribed, please go ahead and do that and throw me a thumbs up. That's what keeps my videos in the rotation, keeps me making those videos, and thanks for everybody for the support. And a big shout out to all the new patrons. If you're interested in that, the details are down in the description. I'm going to get back to it. You guys know the drill. Thanks for stopping by the garage. And remember, ABT, always be tuning.